Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me all right, Tim?
Yep, sounds like it's coming through good. Looks like you're on the move there.
I am. I'm out on the open road here.
You're not driving, are you? You're in the back seat?
No, I'm in the back seat. Look, no hands.
Yeah, what are you doing? Watch out.
Yeah, I'll try to keep the camera stable so people don't get nauseous watching the picture. Hello, Greg.
Howdy, howdy. Oh yeah, gotta fix my background. Hello.
Yeah. Was that your horse in the background there?
Not my horse, but a horse photo from work. Yeah. Which it's not like it's a secret, or if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you can find out where that work is, but just feels like probably should keep that separate from Englewood stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like your background, Tim. Is that a photo from the city building, city offices?
Yeah, it's a photo looking out the window there. So yeah, a lot of people think that's live, but it's actually a picture. So they confuses them sometimes.
So that's like looking out at the apartments towards the east.
Yeah, that's the coffee place there. Nixon's is right there at the base of that building there. So
Okay.
looking out over the plaza area.
And maybe the Wells Fargo building is right above you.
Yep. Yeah, that's what that one is. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we have several folks who are planning on making it tonight. Most of the committee. I believe that Neil is planning to be here tonight, and also Jennifer should be as well. So maybe we could just wait another minute or two in the hopes that they'll get here. I think, oh, there we go. And I think that we've got quorum with 3 members. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for being late.
No problem. Good to see you, Neil.
Thanks, Craig.
Alrighty, well, maybe we can get started. So call the meeting to order. It's the July 14th, 2022 Englewood Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. And we've got a couple of folks here. So maybe if you're there, Michelle, and able to take roll, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Chair Knaddison.
Here.
Vice Chair Lewis. Member Diedrich.
Present.
Member Sarno.
Here.
Member Whitney.
Here.
Alternate member Heller. Director DeAndre.
Present.
And Deputy Director Host.
Here.
And we also have Police Sergeant Brian, I believe, on the line.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So we have the first order of business is recognition of public comment, but I don't think that is applicable tonight. So we can move on to the approval of the minutes. We have the April 14th meeting and the May 12th meeting. So I guess we'll just start if there's any discussion or a motion on the April 14th minutes.
I thought they looked okay.
I would second that.
Is that a motion to approve them there, Member Diedrich?
Yeah, I motion to approve
Okay,
the minutes
Okay, great.
from that meeting.
And I second Chris's motion.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair Knaddison,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lewis, still not here. Member Diedrich,
Aye.
Member Sarno,
Aye.
and Member Whitney.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Great, thank you. And then we can consider the May 12th minutes.
I motion to approve them. They look sparse, but I will. They look good to me.
Yeah, I was at the meeting and it was a really good discussion on the capital prioritization project. We spent a lot of time in the session, but there wasn't a lot to it besides reviewing. So this is a very nice second.
I unfortunately did not attend that meeting, so I'm in no position to make claim on those, so.
And we couldn't quite hear you for a second there, Chris, so we've got a motion from Member Whitney.
Oh, yes,
And is there a second?
Yes, I second that motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take vote. Chair Knaddison, Vice Chair Lewis is not here. Member Diedrich,
Yes, aye.
Member Sarno,
Aye.
Member Whitney,
Aye.
and I'm gonna go back to Chair Knaddison.
Sorry, folks. My power just went out for a second there. Sorry about that.
Okay, we're still doing the voting. So Chair Knaddison,
Aye,
perfect. Motion carries.
thank you. All righty. So the next item up, there's is the Hampden Avenue planning process presentation. So I'm just happy to talk about this a little bit, and Director DeAndrea also has some experience there and can, or some experience is understating it, but also recognizing that there's a lot to say here. I just thought that I would give a little bit of background, and it's something that I think will be an ongoing topic for our committee in the coming months. But it felt really important to talk about because they are looking for public feedback now. So this is a moment where we can all give our feedback, and then also in our role as liaisons to the community, work to spread this through whatever channels we might have for sharing this survey with folks. So there is a link to a PDF of information that this committee shared with us maybe a month ago. It felt to me like the first time where the group was sharing, wasn't just about like the process, but it was more research about what's going on Hampden, and some different insights about the uses of Hampden, and some of the just different context to the project. I thought that would be good to share. And as I understand it, just Hampden doesn't have, I feel like we've talked about this a little bit before, that Hampden didn't really have a long-term plan. And so Director DeAndrea sort of started a process to get one in place and get one going. And then a couple of neighboring cities and other kinds of groups said, yeah, we would like to talk about that. Yeah, we would like to talk about that. And it just sort of snowballed into a bigger and bigger group of people, which I think is really nice. So there's now a group of, the list of folks on it is one of the first pages in that PDF, but maybe 50 people who are participating, and just really, I think, a pretty interesting cross-section of the community, with the one that is like the most unexpected from my perspective is that Historic Colorado has an easement on a house that is maybe a block away from Hampden, and so they have a duty to protect that easement, to protect that house and the structure, to make sure that it stays intact for historic reasons. So they are there to make sure of that. So lots of folks representing different communities, different backgrounds, different perspectives. It's been, I think, a pretty good conversation so far. So I just encourage everybody to take a look through that through the PDF, through the supplement in the packet, in the meeting packet. And if you're not able to access that, I can share a link to it as well. But it's a good thing to read, more than we could cover now. And then also, just as collect information from your communities or from your own experience, and add that on to the survey. I feel like the survey website is a little bit tricky to use at first. It's got a map, and you've got to like drag a point onto the map and then add a comment of a particular type. And each comment has a couple of different fields. So if that process is like confusing or giving trouble, it's not you. It's, I think, probably everybody the first time that they use it has that experience. But it ends up being, I think, a pretty rich set of information for the folks working on this project to be able to leverage as they are gathering that information. So that's just about all that I had to say about it. Director DeAndrea, anything you want to add?
Yeah, we just produced a infographic about the project, or a little bit, just if you wouldn't mind if I could pull that up just to share that.
Of course, please.
Yeah, I had asked Michelle, it's also been added to the agenda. So if you want to go out there and take a look at that, but I'll pull it up right here right now for us to look at. And this is just a fun way of, presenting information instead of in a report format. I'm going to zoom in here in just a minute when it comes up. So overall, I think Chair Knaddison, that was a great summary. This is a kind of actually start at the bottom here. But this is a 6.3 mile corridor. So if you travel Hampden to the west, if you go out to the west side of Sheridan, there's the last signal as you travel west is at Lowell Boulevard, Knox Court. You can see that down in the lower corner here. And we actually go 6.3 miles all the way over to I-25. So that's really the limits of this project. And if we scroll up just a little bit here, you can see there was actually up in the upper left-hand corner, there were 23 previous studies done. But I think and it's like, oh my gosh, how we can study this to death. But I think when looking at that list, everybody's kind of done their own thing. So this is really going to be a compilation of those efforts. So maybe let's say Cherry Hills Village looked at their segment, or Englewood looked at a particular segment. This is putting all of that together and looking at the whole corridor in as a comprehensive, because that's the way it operates. And so this is just, again, we're at the start of that project, trying to gather information. You can see roughly anywhere on the corridor. I'm going to zoom up just a little bit here, or scroll up. You can see that about between 42 and 62,000 vehicles per day travel in the corridor. So quite a bit. And most of those are single passenger vehicle cars. So when we talk about mobility and, getting people to take different ride modes, you can see that as we move over to the right here, you can see most people are driving alone. And so how can we maybe start to shift that a little bit by making things better? So providing, comfortable walking paths, comfortable ways to get around, improving the trail, there's 8 bus routes there. So improving transit options, biking and walking. I thought another kind of a good, interesting fact down here, if you can see, is Hampden segments, there's 2 miles of missing sidewalks along that entire corridor. So it's like we've got a lot of work to do. And then 3,295 crashes, including 10 fatalities. So we're again at the start of that process. As Chair Knaddison mentions, we are gathering data, and like even tonight, members of the project team, I couldn't make it over there because of this meeting, but they're at the Sunset Concert Series tonight to inform people. There'll be a variety of other events. So Saturday, they'll be at the Englewood Market event, as well as events in the other communities, Sheridan, Denver, Cherry Hills Village, to get the word out. So this survey is available until we've actually extended it. So we're going to go till next Thursday at midnight. So through the 21st. So pass this on to others. We have been working with our communications department. Hopefully they've put out some tweets and some social media connections to make people aware of this. And then we do have I'll see if I can pull this up or not, but we do have the Englewood Engage page. That's basically the city website for this project. And that's where you go to get to the survey link in that map. Can you guys see that? Are you seeing the?
We're just seeing the infographic right now.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Here, I'll stop share for a minute. Okay, let me try and pull that up. Yes. So can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, this is the Englewood Engage page. So the way you get to this is going onto the City of Englewood's homepage. Go to the Englewood Engage. It's one of the main buttons on the front page, and then you can get to this study. And then the survey is down here. This gives a timeline. We're hoping to wrap this up probably the end of this year, beginning of next. And basically what those outcomes will be is a series of prioritized efforts, like projects where we would be able then to go after federal funding or other state funding sources to implement those. And again, those could be anywhere along that 6-mile corridor. And this is the survey that we talked about, and where you pull the pin in and drop that into the map. And I think we've had really good response so far. I think we're up to over 60 or 70 comments, but we're looking always for more. So with that, happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it back to Chair Knaddison.
Thank you. Yeah, I had one quick question on the study you just, or that infographic you were just showing was, I was curious where the, I think they referred to as the Bottoms neighborhood.
Let me pull it up again. I may have misspoken, a Bottoms neighborhood?
It's sort of in the middle at the bottom. Some redevelopment is expected at
Oh, here, I'll go down
Old
there.
Hampden Avenue and the Bottoms neighborhood.
Oh, okay, yes. That is in Denver, I believe. So the, or excuse me, that may be Cherry Hills Village, because they were commenting about the cut through traffic on, well, I guess cut through traffic in Cherry Hills Village, that's this button over here, but the redevelopment or the development is occurring in, I believe that's in the Happy Canyon area of Denver.
Okay.
I'll verify that though.
Okay.
Mhm.
There is that like one section where Hampden dips down, or 285 dips down away from Old Hampden Avenue. And it does seem like there's some, there's like that old mortuary that is getting redeveloped into apartments. I hadn't heard that phrase, the Bottoms
I've
neighborhood.
never heard
Yeah.
the Bottoms, yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know where that is
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. What do folks think? Any comments or questions? Any thoughts now?
Yeah, I have a comment there. I would just say that, Director DeAndrea, that, yeah, you brought up the lack of sidewalks, I believe, for a 2-mile stretch on Hampton here. And I remember several years ago, actually attempting to do just a bike ride on Hampton or there. And it was just too much. And I think that's probably the reason why it's been a couple of years since I attempted it again. I did notice, and particularly near the Welshire Golf Course over there, and I'm assuming, of course, that has plenty of issues to do with right of way and so on, and
Yeah,
in that I understand that. But it was a great improvement to have that underpass connecting
Mhm.
Line Canal that ties into, I guess south over there to the north, near Colorado Boulevard over there. So, if these are some of the things that are kind of highlights of, and maybe what we can look for in the future, I'm very supportive of that, so I guess then the second just general question here I have is that I know in this committee, we've discussed numerous times regarding that, the turn off to Old Hampton there, and some of the issues that they've had there in terms of accidents and so on. Is this study and so on, and is any of it addressing that or the potential for that?
it is. And actually I can report that, if you remember, it was after that accident where the car went into Pino's or into the maybe it was the Caribou Coffee, I forget which part of the building it hit, but we sent a letter
Yeah,
based on ETAC direction to CDOT to actually look at that. And they're actually, I just heard from them within the past month that they're actually going to be putting up guardrail in that kind of, so as you come westbound, that they'd put up guardrail to prevent people from going into the buildings there. So I think there's some large boulders and stuff.
Yeah.
Not that that's going to be 100% solution. So I think Member Sarno, that in the short term, they're looking at some signage enhancements in the guardrail, but this definitely will be a long-term
yeah.
element that they'll address through this study. Absolutely.
Well, I think that was pretty much on the image that was used. I think that you brought up there too, was just facing west, and I just noticed it right there. The kind of turn off down to Old Hampton.
Yep.
Kind of reminded me about all the issues we've had there. So, yeah.
And we did address that, like the topic in general, that the scope of this is not just like sidewalk to sidewalk of 285, that it's about everything that affects the safety and capacity of 285. And so if that means more trails or bicycle boulevards or something on parallel streets, or if it means more public transit connections or something like that, like all of that stuff is is in scope for the conversation. So as you're thinking about putting points on the survey, or if you're getting feedback and somebody says, oh, I think this would help to, you know, reduce the pressure on 285 or something, then yeah, all of that is definitely in scope. And I think that infographic does a great job. It's like a very nice artistic concept there to get across the point that, yeah, from west of Lowell through through like the downtown Englewood area, where there's a whole bunch of turning interactions to get in and out of apartment buildings or commercial access or different places that people are going. And then you get to University again, where it turns into like it feels more like a highway, and the speed goes up and the lane widths are high, and and there's 3 lanes, and then it hits Colorado and goes down to 2 lanes, right? So there's just like a very different nature, and past Colorado getting to Happy Canyon again, where you've got a lot of turning. Just the nature of the street changes a lot in that 6 miles and goes back and forth, which I think makes it confusing for drivers about what they're supposed to be doing, right? That was one thing that was brought up a couple of times, I think, is how the number of lanes and the speed limits changing just makes people behave differently, which then leads to different speeds and therefore accidents. So it's definitely a challenging area. Any thoughts or questions, Member Whitney?
No, I was gonna just say this is great work. I think doing the collective analysis and seeing that all in one like nice infographic is super helpful. Even just kind of putting it in scope how the road is used. 90 to 96% are passenger vehicles, and then 76 of those is drove alone. So that is a systemic problem, right?
Mm.
Whether it's like Denver's commuting infrastructure, or it's where are people going and what are we like attaching to, and looking at that. So just trying to think through it's a lot of numbers, and it's a lot of information, but you guys did a great job. I just commend you guys on doing the cross-section study of all this. I guess the only question I had was, we've mentioned the power of Englewood or the cities, and just Hampden has so many departments, or Hampden has so many parties involved, and then it's ultimately owned by or maintained by CDOT. So what are the limits to what we can do, and what is the goal of the committee? Just, is it advising CDOT? Is it like the committee doing the studying, not necessarily ETAC per se, but since it is so cross-sectional across the cities and state?
Do you want to speak to that, Chair Knaddison, or do you want me to?
I have no idea, so please do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Chair Knaddison is on the Citizens Community Advisory Committee, CAC. And so that is a cross-section of folks, citizens. We have the mayor of Cherry Hills Village participates. Folks, I think there was a gentleman from Denver Schools is on there, a principal of a school in that
principal
corridor.
of Thomas Jefferson, yeah.
The police chief for Englewood is on there. I think Denver Fire's representative. So a wide variety of folks is on the CAC. So we're getting their input at periodic times back to inform the study. Then we have a project team, which is made up, I'm the project manager for Englewood and for the overall project. We have consultants on that project team, and then a member from each of the other communities. So Sheridan, Englewood, Cherry Hills Village, Denver, and then RTD and Arapahoe County are also participating. So that's the makeup of the project team. And so then we have a TAC as well, Technical Advisory Committee, which is more, again, made up of members of CDOT, RTD, as well as the city, I would say more traffic related folks that participate in that. So it's really kind of a multi-level effort of trying to get a variety of perspectives to give input, and the project team, I would say, is responsible for the overall direction and moving forward. So the intent would be, to answer specifically your question, is that, again, if you remember the 23 separate studies, we want to get to consensus. So there's a lot of, let's say, different ideas from Denver versus what CDOT wants to do. CDOT wants to push probably as much traffic through as possible. You know, limit the amount of green time to the side streets, limit maybe perhaps bike or walkers. They just want to move traffic. That's not necessarily their perspective, but that's typically and has been in the past their perspective. Whereas, you know, the communities, we want to promote that cross traffic, which means that you're not going to necessarily move cars as quickly as possible, because we want to make those connections neighborhood to neighborhood, kids walking to work, people biking and going to shopping, whatever. And so there's a definite, I don't know what the right word is, but, you know, different philosophies. And so our goal is to come out at the end where we have consensus, is that obviously it's not going to be one extreme or the other. We're not going to take away a lane in each direction to put in a bike lane, because we can't allow for that in terms of the amount of traffic that's going on there. But can we make some tweaks or maybe narrow the lanes or do different things to allow for better multimodal connections, still continue to have that cross traffic? I think that's where we'll end up with. And so that list of recommended projects will then support that. And that hopefully we could use this study to support going forward to get federal funding, state funding. And then let's say if there's a project in Cherry Hills Village, they would apply for that and actually do the project, or CDOT might do it. Either one in that instance, we might do something, or CDOT could bring that forward. That would be how we would move forward to actually implement something on the ground.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I also really appreciate the more citizen approach, not just like pushing cars. I know there's been plenty of studies that say like, yeah, adding another lane doesn't actually help traffic. It just makes it just as bad because more cars take it. So
Yeah.
you're always going to have the amount of density once you do. So yeah, I really appreciate just pushing for that multimodal, and hopefully we can heed some of that and see the numbers kind of level or right size in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to find in the meeting packet, there was a graph showing, maybe it was in here, and I can share my screen to show this. So the corridor related regional demand, I think this is the predicted number, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit. But I thought it was interesting that this is showing like the number of vehicles per day, I believe. It's like traffic volume. So these numbers are a measure of traffic volume or the width of the lines. But a lot of it is just right here. It's in like a relatively small distance, which I think was really encouraging to me on the idea of bikes, and like particularly e-bikes, as a potential solution for a lot of these folks. If they're only going a couple of miles, then you know, an e-bike is a great solution for a single vehicle going a couple of miles. 2-3 miles is like that's the sweet spot there, where a bike is much better than sitting in traffic on 285. The other page that I wanted to highlight in here was up at the beginning, talking about the set of folks who are on this, who are part of this group. It's a lot of pages. Okay, here we go. The roster. Yeah. So you know, it's too small to read, but it's in the packet if you look at it on page 9. And yeah, it's just got a ton of different folks that are representing different perspectives. You know, the principal from Thomas Jefferson was talking about their bus stop and how that's a source of pride for the students and for their school community. You know, they've got it decorated out with a bunch of Thomas Jefferson sort of colors and the school logo and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool to think about. And then one other interesting thing in here is showing the graphs of the amount of time that it takes. So there's a couple of different graphs showing the travel times on different sections. And one of the like explicit positive stated goals of the project is to reduce the variability in these. So you can see how, like, if you leave at 6, the amount of time you spend on this section is 3 minutes, right? But if you leave at 8, it might be 6 minutes. So having that double in the amount of time going through this segment is something that is, you know, viewed as a negative, and something that we would want to ideally try to flatten this out a bit, and make sure that that people have a consistent experience of how long it takes to get through the section. Am I stating that right? Yeah, okay. So that, I thought that was interesting to see what that difference is. And when you think about, like, well, 3 minutes isn't that long, but this is just one segment. And so if somebody has to travel through a whole bunch of them, then the difference between, you know, having a total of maybe 6 minutes versus a total of 20 minutes is a pretty big difference. Yeah, so lots of good data throughout this whole packet. Definitely the project team has been gathering a ton of information and sharing it out. I believe that some of the next stuff is getting into, well, the survey right now, and then in parallel, I believe that they're doing some like simulation work and modeling work, so that we can consider how different adjustments will impact the area, and we'll just like keep on working on making the plan. Yeah, Director DeAndrea.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Whitney.
Yeah, I just had a question. Greg, thank you so much for that, showing that last one where the lines get fatter, or the graphic where the lines show how many cars are moving through the different sections. Those numbers are just substantially larger than surrounding numbers. Is that because of cross traffic, like going from one place to another in very short distances from that area, or just, yeah, you can see like people fall off pretty quickly? Do we know what kind of where they're going, or how far they're going from like Hampden up or Hampden down or Hampden just to get to 70 or Santa Fe? Like, is there a reason that density is so great that we've been able to find out?
I can speak to that a little bit. Yeah, that was one of the surprising things. And I think it showed that in the, I can try and pull that up again, in the infographic, the trips are very short. So you would think that quite a number of people are traveling, you know, let's say not necessarily from one end, complete end to the other, but they're doing, you know, that this is a commuter route, if you will. Very much so. Instead, you're seeing, let me just zoom in here as this comes up. You're seeing very, very short trips, which means, where am I? There we go.
Sorry, I stole it from you.
Oh,
I
good. Yeah,
ready,
please
so
do.
yeah. Is this it?
Yep. And then where does it say that? 80, oh, there it is right there. 80% of trips are 5 miles or less, meaning that they're, and I think it's concentrated in that section there that Chair Knaddison showed. Maybe they're going to downtown Englewood, or they're running over to, you know, somewhere on the south side of, let's say they may go to Swedish or something. We don't know necessarily. We know if they go north or south. We don't know how far they're going. Like, let's say, what are those? We could get more into that origin destination, but that's not necessarily part of this study. It's more looking at the corridor, not necessarily where they're coming to or from. Obviously, we know that the medical area is a big draw regionally, but a lot of that is just short trips that people probably could get out of their cars, and, you know, whether it's an e-bike or a scooter, or you're taking your own bike, that they could get there in a different way. Yeah. I think that was a kind of an aha that came out, that has come out of this.
Yeah, no, it's hugely revealing, because you think it'd be very much a cross town type of deal. At least for me, that's usually why I'm on that corridor, is to go across town. But I know my trips are short as well. So that's great. That's all. I mean, just a testament to the work you guys are doing. So thank you again.
Yeah, the other one that was kind of interesting, or the other like graphic that caught me, was the heat map of the like side cutting usage, or cut through. That's what it is. Excuse me, which There we go. So yeah, like Hampden and then taking Happy Canyon to get down to Quincy, or taking Colorado and cutting through on, I think that's Mansfield to get to Happy Canyon to get to Quincy or something like that. And they looked at a couple of different cut through options, and you know, it's sort of like pros and cons on those, I guess. If it's like taking pressure off of Hampden, but on the other hand, it's sending commuter traffic through a residential neighborhood, and you know, often at a higher speed than is appropriate for that side street. So that one was interesting as well. Yeah, but yeah, lots of good stuff. Definitely encourage folks to look through it, and please do provide your feedback on the survey and share that survey out as you can. Alrighty, any other thoughts or questions on, oh yeah, Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair Knaddison, I think it was you perhaps that discussed or brought up that ETAC will be participating or contributing commentary for this regarding this study, or what is our role moving forward for this, if any? Yeah,
I mean, right now with the survey, that's probably the best thing that folks can do individually is to provide feedback on the survey, because that will like feed in a very official manner. And then also you know, as Director DeAndrea said, she's the project manager and is very involved in this. And then I'm like our representative and liaison for the committee, and then also the broader community to some extent. There's other folks who represent other perspectives of the community, but I'm trying to be representing not just my opinion, but the community's opinion. So I will definitely be sharing back information as I get it, and looking for your feedback and to represent your perspectives there.
Yeah. Well, if the one of the things that comes about from having these studies happen or occur, and as Director DeAndrea mentioned, like, you know, you have an aha moment that I think surprised a few of us, and particularly I was surprised by that. Hopefully that kind of leverages a little bit in terms of what some of the solutions are, in terms of maybe more multimodal, or what can be done to alleviate that density that's in that area there, to make it more free flowing, but more accommodating to the community there. So that's just a general comment on that. So it was very surprising to me too, because maybe it's just the general layout of the road itself, and it goes from I-25 and just continues and goes straight on through all the way out to, you know, practice 70 and 470 or so on. But, you know, to understand that there's so much density and volume right there in that short 5-mile span, I think, or a couple mile span, whatever that was, there is just really, yeah, that was a surprise. So thank you for doing the study and bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, any other thoughts on that? Okay, feel free to, you know, reach out via email or you know, directly to me, or I'm happy to pass feedback along, or this survey, like I said, is a good way right now. And then otherwise, I guess the next item on the agenda was an email about the intersection of Cherokee and Eastman. You know, that's in the packet here, you know, folks can read that, but basically just there's a concern about that intersection, and a suggestion, I think, of putting in a painted crosswalk, or, you know, making it a 4-way stop or something. So, but I believe that the city has done some research and sort of presented some information back. So maybe Deputy Director, want to speak to that?
Sure, yeah, I can speak a little bit. I kind of wanted to use the time a little bit to explain kind of how we evaluate these type of requests. We get probably 3 or 4 a month of these types of requests, and we definitely have a process we go through to evaluate them, to verify if the initial assumptions are correct, or if there's actually something else going on there. So the way we start with this is we collect data. When we see something like this, we go and we collect the data on the speed of the vehicles, and then the vehicle count, how many vehicles are traveling through the intersection. And we also, in this case, we got the pedestrian counts as well, to see how many pedestrians are using that intersection, and then the bicycles as well, so we could evaluate all that data and make sure that what was going on there, what we were seeing there. So that's typically how we do these kind of requests. We'll collect that data first, and then we have our traffic engineering consultant analyze the data and compare it to the manual of uniform traffic control devices and the criteria in there to make sure we follow the standard criteria, so we're consistent in how we make the decisions on what we do with these types of requests and what we end up, what the solution is or what we can do. So it's usually pretty well received when we get the data and we explain, here's the process we went through and how we came to this conclusion. The residents and people who submit these types of things, they're usually pretty appreciative of the effort we go to analyze it and make sure that we are considering everything going on there. We also look at the crash data is the other thing we do with the police department and find out in this situation, the person mentioned the 2 crashes there. So we analyze that as well to see what kind of crash it was and what the cause was, so we can figure out what might be going on there. So with that, then the other thing I was going to mention, a lot of the data now, we're trying to collect the data in the house now with our own staff. We've got our own traffic counters as well as the speed counters now that we can do. And then we're hoping to next year's budget get a camera that we can kind of a portable camera you can mount at the intersection to get the counts for the pedestrians and the bicycles. It's more of a kind of a visual thing, so someone doesn't have to stand out there or something. We're able to collect it by video and be able to analyze it later. The camera we're looking at, actually the company will do the analysis and send you the data based on what the camera collected there. So it's a pretty nice device to have there. We're hoping to be able to collect a lot of this data in-house, and we won't have to hire an outside firm to do it in the future. But so with that, is there any question about the process or anything? I'll go through this particular request here and kind of explain the results of this one, so everybody can kind of see how we work through this one and kind of the results of what we're going to be able to do on this one, and we can talk more about that if you want. All right, well, I'll go ahead with this one. So this one, so we started with I'll kind of look down here a little bit. I don't have all the results memorized here, so I'll kind of summarize through here. For the 4-way stop review, the 4-way stops are they're not really based on speed. I think this person was thinking, the cars are speeding, so we'll put a stop sign up and that'll stop them from speeding. So that's not really how we analyze the stop signs. So they're more based on the traffic volume and the kind of the volume split there. And at this intersection, the traffic volume did not meet the minimum standard for a stop sign. There was not enough split of traffic there to, or actually it's more of an equal split of traffic. This intersection had definitely more going east-west and north-south, so that didn't really meet that criteria. And we also looked at the crashes there. There's a criteria for the number of crashes that it needs to meet to warrant a 4-way stop. And the criteria is 5 crashes in a 12-month period is kind of the minimum criteria to consider a 4-way stop. And this only had those 2. What we did do, though, the traffic engineer went out there and looked at the intersection just to kind of see what might be causing those crashes. And he was able to discover a couple of things here that we're going to be able to do at this location to help hopefully prevent those crashes in the future. Because, yeah, there's obviously when a crash happens, there's a reason, and we want to verify that and see what we can do to improve that, because nobody wants to be in crashes or be afraid to get into a crash at an intersection. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, kind of what he came up with based on the speeding as well. They did look at the speeding here. It's interesting, some of these emails come in and it sounds like there's speeding is prevalent all the time, and the results on this one came back with the average measured speed was 19 miles an hour and the maximum speed was 40 miles an hour or less, and there was only 7% of vehicles with speeding the speed limit. So it really, that data really shows, there may be a few cars speeding at certain times and things, but it really is not a prevalent thing where we don't want to react to that kind of stuff and assume that that's a problem until we get that data. That's why we collect that data, to make sure what we're seeing out there. So with that information, we really weren't able to do a stop sign either. But and like I said, the speeding is not really the solution is not a stop sign for the speeding. But what we did see, the speed results also tell us the time of day and kind of how fast the cars are going, what time of day it is. So looking into that a little deeper, the consultant was able to see that there was kind of during the morning of rush hour, and then kind of around noontime, and then kind of late afternoon, that there was a little bit more speeding than typical. And what they were able to associate that with is the school is to the west of there a little bit. It seemed to kind of match up a little bit with the people maybe going to the school to pick up their kids or whatever. So that was something we noticed there, that there's a bit of a pattern there that we can correct, or we can at least try to correct, and address a little bit. So that's that was one thing. And so kind of what we're going to do with that is we've got portable speed radar signs, they're called, where you got it shows the speed limit at the bottom, and then you have the radar thing at the top to tell you your actual speed. It's kind of a speed awareness sign. I think you've probably seen them around, but we've got 2 of those that we try to move around the city as needed there. So we're going to put one of those up going westbound here, just to kind of remind drivers of their speed, so they understand that it's here's the speed limit, here's how fast you're going, and keep an eye on it. A lot of times it is just the neighborhood traffic there, and people don't realize how fast they're going. So it helps people to be aware of how fast they are going, to be cognizant of that. So that's one thing we're going to do here on this one. And then the other thing we are going to be able to do, I mentioned the consultant went out and looked at the intersection there and kind of evaluated the crashes and what might be causing those. And what they did discover was there were vehicles parking within 30 feet of the stop signs going north-south there, and that's city code doesn't allow you to park within 30 feet of a stop sign because it does block that sight distance. When somebody's coming up to the stop sign, you can't really see around the car, so you have to kind of creep out there, and it's a little dangerous when you got to sneak out there to try to see around the vehicle. So in response to this one, we did send a letter to those residents on those corners there to let them know they can't park within 30 feet of that stop sign. That's a violation of city code. So we're hoping that will alert them to that issue, and they'll stay back a little further so that sight distance is appropriate there. So the other thing we found too, there was a tree kind of growing over one of the stop signs as well. We got the vegetation removed on that, and we're able to clean that up a little bit, make sure people can see the stop sign clearly. So we think that's going to help a lot as well. So those are the 2 main things we did to address the stop condition there and the full-way stop request. Those are 2 things we were able to identify as things that could be improved on to help try to prevent those crashes in the future. So and as far as the marked crosswalk, we do have a crosswalk policy there, a marked crosswalk policy about where we put those in. And we looked at this one as well, and it's not directly adjacent to the school. It's a couple blocks away. So we typically, the policy doesn't, we typically don't put crosswalks that far from a school. It just is not something we can put that many crosswalks around. It creates a few too many. And it's just not as effective there. So we didn't meet that as well. So we didn't put the crosswalks in, and we did explain all this to the resident there, and he was very appreciative of the effort we took and the study we did to evaluate that. And this is typically how we do all of these. We have a process. It's a traffic modification request. We call these types of requests here, and we go through the same process to evaluate them and make sure we look at all the data there and make sure we're seeing things correctly and do what we can to improve things where we can. And so that was kind of the summary of what happened on this one here. And I can answer any questions, or if there's any other thoughts or anything on how we go about that or what we do there. If anybody has any questions or other thoughts you want to share.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that background and your thoughts on this specific situation. Certainly glad to hear that the person who sent the email is that they felt like it was a good response. What any thoughts or questions that folks have?
I would just say that, yeah, I do appreciate that, Assistant Director Hoos, in terms of how the city's taking in or explaining what would be the approach on handling these situations. I think that's very helpful, because if citizens, residents do not understand that, they may be remiss to think that, well, this is something that they're arbitrarily making decisions and so on. So by providing a little bit of background to express that there is a criteria and protocol that's followed, it helps them to understand that it's across the board and not anything that's specific to that intersection or to them and so on. So I think that's very important to do that with the citizens as well too. So they understand that's how the city handles these sorts of situations when they arise. So thanks for explaining that.
Sure.
All righty. There's no other comments. We can move on. The last one here is the trash hauler initiative update. And okay, Director DeAndrea, yes. happy to have your thoughts on this one.
Traffic and garbage, that's what we're here for. So just I thought we had talked about this maybe at the May meeting, but the council did decide after quite a bit of public testimony to forego moving forward with an organized garbage collection at this time. So I think that I want to say the meeting was like May 8th or something like that. So they did have a actual public hearing, but there were a number of people that showed up to, I would say, almost all the meetings in both April and May to give testimony as part of public comment. So based on that, we did complete that survey. They did make that formal vote in early to mid-May of this year. So at this point, we're not doing anything further. And basically each residential property is responsible for contacting someone and continuing to have a contract. So the elements of the municipal code still apply. So each property is still required to have garbage service and collect that on a weekly basis. And that collection can only occur on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we've heard a little bit, you know, that with COVID, that schedule was morphing a little bit. And so we'll continue to enforce that through code enforcement. But other than that, really staff is not working on this initiative at this point. But happy to answer any questions.
And the ad hoc committee has been like disbanded.
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty, yeah. Member Sarno, please go ahead.
Oh, I think I'm going to lower my hand because you pretty much commented on my question there. Thanks, there, Chair Knaddison. So, and yeah, well, it was worth a try and to go through this experience in that sense. So it was interesting to go from beginning to end, I suppose, in that sense, and that. So, but thanks for updating us on that, Director DeAndrea. I appreciate it. No more pizza parties either, I take it then. No. Okay. So,
Not at this time, but that doesn't mean that this wouldn't come back again, you know, at some point in the future.
okay.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, next up, we've got Director's Choice.
I can share, we did get the grant application for the old Hampden project submitted there. I want to let you know we're hoping to hear back on August 19th about that. And if we got that grant to do the complete streets treatment on that segment there between Lafayette and Broadway. So hoping for good news on that, but we did get that submitted there. And it's looks like it's we have a pretty good shot there anyway. And we also submitted an application for South Broadway between 285 and Bellevue for a potential complete streets as well. We're looking at possibly putting the bike lane on Sherman there to match the walk and wheel plan where that was intended, and then do some upgrades on Broadway to the bus stops and pedestrian access so that's a little more accessible there, and we can separate those bikes and vehicles on Broadway. There's a little safer and easier for bikes to get around. So we're hoping to hear good news on that one as well, but we got both of those submitted and we're should hear back here later in August.
Good deal. Great. Thank you. Alrighty, up next, Chairperson's Choice, and I got my stuff on the agenda, so I'm all good. And I'll just go in order of Zoom here. So Member Sarno, anything that you were hoping to talk about as part of Committee Members' Choice?
Just a question, Chair Knaddison, and I've noticed the work that's going on for, I guess, a landscaping area and the trails closed for Little Dry Creek. I guess that would be west of Broadway there, in that area there. Can you update us, anyone, just on the work there and how that's coming along and completion date and so on, proposed completion date?
Sure, I can talk to that a little bit. So yeah, we're coming to a close on that. They're getting close to being done. I'm sure you've seen the new grand staircase, they've called it there, to get down to the creek there. They got that installed. That's pretty prominent there. You can see off the 285. And the last piece of that is to put the safety grate over that big opening there where it goes into the culvert right there. It's taken a little while to build that there, getting the steel and stuff took them a little while. That was a little, what do they call it, a supply chain issue they had to get all the steel for that grate. So they're just getting done fabricating that. And it's hopefully going to show up here late July, early August. They'll get that grate on. That's going to be kind of the last piece. And they're hoping to be done by mid to late August. That project should be complete for that section, and we'll get the trail reopened. So there's going to be a phase 2 of that project where they'll do the upper plaza areas there and redo those to kind of match into the new kind of channel bottom there and the creek and stuff. So that's a little further out, but the first phase there of that work is scheduled to be done in about a month now.
Okay, very good.
And that was
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
that was a joint project with the Mile High Flood District. So that was paid 50-50 with them. And the intent was to really restore the channel bottom. So if you remember, it was concrete line down there, which was efficient from a storm sewer, but didn't really lend to a downtown look or even any kind of look. So that was part of it was just the aesthetics and restoring that channel bottom and really making it more of a place to attract, hopefully. And that's what the second phase that Tim mentioned will do, is really start to work from basically the water level up and start to make that more of an amenity, a nicer looking place for people to gather in the downtown area. And I'm sorry, go ahead with your other question.
No, just that's it. I'm looking forward to seeing that improvement. So whenever I see that construction, that's hopefully the outcome, right? Some sort of improvement there. Curious also just how that ties into the overall interchange when that comes. I'm imagining that what's being built right now is gonna be included in that design or somehow tie in, or maybe that's not even in the footprint.
Yeah, so that corner there has been coordinated with the intersection project to tie into the, it's going to be a bit of a grade change there, and they've looked at the landscaping and the connection to the trail and stuff to make sure it is, it'll look seamless when they're done. It'll all be one unit there once the intersection's going. That was something I was going to mention too. The intersection project is out for bids right now. We have that out for bids, for contract for bids, and we're hoping to get those bids. If we're going to get the bids back in 2 weeks from today, we'll have those bids and we'll know the cost of that, and hopefully we'll get a good bid there and we can move forward. We're within budget and we can get that started. But it's exciting to know we're getting close to getting bids in and see if we can't get that project going and get that intersection widened out.
Yeah, it is. So just as a general note as well, I've witnessed just quite a bit of construction and things happening on Old Hampton near Swedish and that sort of advancement, and as well as just all throughout the community there too. So little things, crosswalks and kind of signage, increased signage and all of that I've noticed. So yeah, just keeping track of it and seeing the improvements. So very good. Thanks. That's all I have, Member Knaddison, Chair Knaddison.
Okay, great. Thank you. All righty. Member Whitney, anything for?
I don't have anything at this time, but I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Member Diedrich?
Yeah, just one question. I was kind of curious to what extent, even if not all, this bigger Hampton project is going to be playing into the Old Hampton work that is underway. I know they're at very different phases, but I was just kind of curious if you had some insight on that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Member Diedrich. The Old Hampton project, the work that we're doing there is really focused on right now is the utilities, and we'll be hopefully replacing those next year. But I think there's definitely a crossover in the sense of one of the slides showed that there's actually cut through traffic occurring on Old Hampton. And we've discovered that through the larger Hampton corridor study. So, which tells me there's cars in there that probably shouldn't be on there. They're not necessarily going for something in that area. Instead, they're hopefully trying to cut through, lessen their travel length or time by using Old Hampton in some fashion. So how can we then inform the design for Old Hampton to restrict that further to hopefully keep only the people that need to be in that street on that street? But I think a great kind of a follow-up to this, maybe at the next meeting, we can show some of those cross sections that we've developed for Old Hampton and really start to talk about what are those other amenities and how it ties into the both corners, basically both ends of Hampton. Also from a regional standpoint, how are we connecting the new sidewalks and bike lanes on Old Hampton to the larger regional network? I think that would be good to show. We can do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know we were talking kind of about biking and sidewalks on 285 earlier. You know, I think we have an opportunity on Old Hampton to get some of the lower speed traffic away from that dangerous. Thanks. And that's all for me.
All righty. Well, thanks very much, everybody. And yeah, Sergeant Cousino, anything that you wanted to contribute? Good to have you here today.
Yeah, just trying to soak it all in, my first meeting, and I'm good for tonight. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. Yeah, I missed the last meeting, so I wasn't sure if you were here or not, but yeah, welcome. And we're certainly glad to have your perspective and welcome any thoughts that you want to share with us. And if there's anybody else who has any comments, any last thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Member Whitney.
My apologies for not bringing this up before. Have we looked into how landscaping also affects speed? So trees will slow people down generally. So when you have a protected sidewalk with tree growth, it is long-term and it takes long-term, but obviously, you know, planting a tree is good for everything. So even just like park development, are we working with the parks and trying to make sure we're getting a greener city as well? And our code and everything like that. This is just a general question.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that, Tim? Deputy Host?
So yeah, the Old Hampden section does have a landscape strip between the multi-use path and the street. For that reason, it's also a water quality feature to help filter some of the stormwater runoff from the sidewalk area there. So it kind of serves a dual purpose, but yeah, that is something we try to, where there's room for the landscaping, that's something we definitely try to fit in there to make sure we have that. It just helps people feel safer on the multi-use path and stuff, and there's that break there. And it does tend to slow traffic down, as you said. We've also got on Old Hampden there on the Lafayette end. We're hoping to get a median in that section. That we've got a little more right of way on that end. We're hoping we can get a landscape median in there that'll kind of be a entry gateway to the city that has some trees and landscaping there to help slow people down and be a little more of a visual interest and kind of set the tone for that segment there. We'll try to a little more traffic calming and make it a little bit nicer for bikes and peds to use that as well. That cars aren't speeding through them maybe quite as quickly. So we are incorporating landscaping into that project for sure to do some of that same thing as you mentioned there.
Wonderful. And is there, I guess we have a lot of new big apartment buildings. I mean, I don't know how many we have planned. I know one right by me is going in. I'm in the Ironworks Village area. And so, or Old General Ironworks, I'm not sure what the neighborhood is officially called now. But we have that, I think there's like 300 units getting built there, and just looking at kind of like the new building codes and everything. So like in the Ironworks Village where I live, we have protected sidewalks. Is it something where going forward or in the future, you know, we're phasing in protected sidewalks on new builds? There's new builds at a certain time, kind of, do they get retrofit into kind of what the sidewalk was and is? Because I know in this general area, it's all the graded sidewalks that are barely walkable if you have a dog. So.
Yeah, so for the Ironworks Village up there, what we ended up doing, we were going to try to get the detached walk up there and get that little landscape strip, but what we ended up doing is we went with a wider sidewalk. So the sidewalk will be attached, but it's going to be a little bit wider along, is that Galapago there, I think. So, and it is going to go all the way from the north edge of their property down to Dartmouth. So we will have a widened sidewalk all the way through there. And it's the other piece of that is that's going to be the start of the rail trail as well up there on Bates. It starts on Bates and then heads over to the along the railroad tracks there, kind of on the west side of the Winslow Crane development. That's we have that easement there. We're going to try to get that trail put in to get it down to Dartmouth at least and get a start on that. So it's going to be 2 different trails there for walking and bikes. And but that typically on developments, to answer your other question, that what we do on the busier streets, we do have a requirement of detached sidewalks where we have that landscape strip for that reason, because it is higher volume, higher speeds. So we have that detached area there to try to separate the sidewalk to make it more comfortable for pedestrians to use the corridor. So, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, and I would say, so community development is starting or has kind of in the middle of a process to rewrite the development code. It's called, that project is called Code Next. And I think this is an area where ETAC could definitely weigh in on in terms of, you know, what do we want our development to look like? What do we want our requirements to be? Because I would say, you know, Tim's in charge of oversight of development review for Public Works. And we tend to be a lone voice in pushing for things like wider sidewalks and street trees and this and that. So that our code is pretty minimal right now. And I think there's an opportunity for us to help rewrite that and make those requirements, especially for those large developments where it's not like, oh, we have to trade off, you know, just to get a 5-foot sidewalk by attaching it, but really look at how do we make that public space more cohesive, and let's do it right this time as it redevelops, as opposed to, oh, we've only got 3 feet left to work in, and because we need to get X number of boxes of homes or whatever. And then, you know, we got to think the other way, like, how do we start with, here's the public realm and here's what's left for the private space. So I think this is an opportunity, and maybe what we could do is invite the Code Next staff, Tim, Deputy Director Host, to come and present to ETAC and actually get feedback on those specific elements within the public right of way.
Yeah,
That is
sounds
fantastic.
great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to hear what they have to say and, you know, advise where we can.
I'd like to get that set up for the next meeting here if I can. I'm familiar with that committee, and we'll see if we can't get him there to get kind of an update on that and get some feedback for him.
That'd be great. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure I've seen the latest plans, but the Broadway 285 overpass and like widening project, I believe, had trees on Broadway as part of some of the initial designs that I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's definitely like part of the plans, but I think always could be more. I saw there were some trees, I was sad, in downtown Englewood on Broadway that got cut down. So I guess there was some sort of problem that required them to be cut down, but hopefully they'll get replaced and come on back. All righty. Any other thoughts folks have? All righty. Well, thanks everybody for your time tonight. Thanks for all your thoughts and feedback, all your preparation. Appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk to you in about a month.
Okay. Take care.
Have a great one.
Have a good
Bye.
time.